I'm Gurpreet Kaur. Today's August 24th, 2030. So in June 1984, I think I was around 11 and a half.
And you were a student at that time?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you remember what grade?
I think it was 5th grade. So in June 84, I was in Faridabad. It's not something that I have any, I don't have any first-hand experience about 1984 because we were in Faridabad, but whatever I know of it is whatever I've heard from Dad, what he experienced, what he saw, and what he came home and told us. To really sum it up, it really. So what I think happened at that time, I mean, it just felt wrong. It felt like I didn't have any words to define my emotions at that time, but I know at that time I felt like human rights violations. It was not a matter of who's sitting at the opposite end with a gun and who's shooting at whom. It was a matter of why would the military just, come in with tanks, with guns, and kill innocent men and women. And if these people were really terrorists and they were terrorizing the innocent, then there could have been a better way to approach that situation and gain control of it. And it really reflected on the Indian Army and the Indian government, the inability to really have any sense of it really reflected their loss of control over the situation, where they felt like they had to go in to our Golden Temple, place of worship, where you have innocent people and you just randomly start killing and shooting. You go in with tanks and with machine guns, and it was just pure carnage. So it makes you think, how can anything like this happen? And who would do something like this? And how can you justify, however someone tries to justify it, you can't. It was mass massacre, and it was just, from how I see it, it was, I don't think it was surprising that this happened, because it was coming. It seems like the plan of the bigger, to get rid of the Sikhs. Why else would you cut people off at their roots? Mm-hmm. Not anyone that I know of personally, other than just my dad, who, when he was a witness to a lot of the events that happened, our home in Amritsar is really in close proximity to the Darbar Sahib, about half a mile. The bird's eye view from our home, from the top, you can see part of the Darbar Sahib and the various gurdwaras, and you can look down and see parts of what's going on. Mm-hmm. So when Dad came home, he told stories about that from the galiyan there were trucks were just filled with dead bodies, just piled on like garbage, and mass cremation of all the dead bodies that they were dragging out of the Gurdwara. And and it was basically truckloads right down our gully when the military was taking all the dead bodies out. So it was, I think how it affected my father is how it affected me, because I felt and I saw through his eyes whatever he told me. In November '84, Dad was in Gurgaon on a business trip because he did business frequently between Amritsar and New Delhi, in Gurgaon. And I was in Faridabad with Mom and my brother, who was at the engineering college right across the street from us. And I remember I was in school. The news, it was announced at school that Indira Gandhi had been shot and that she had died. School was closed, half day. I think it was around noonish. We came home, and as soon as I got home, it was just a lot of unrest happening around the house, because people were shutting down all the shops. All the factory workers from our home had a lot of factories that are leased out, so all the factories were being shut down. Everyone was leaving. And then Mom said, let's go ahead and get some shopping done. We need to get some grocery shopping. So we were at the market, and at the market, the shops were shutting down, and the shopkeepers were saying, "Bhen ji, tusi itthon chale jao, halat theek nahi hai, and tusi jaldi itthon chalo." So I remember Mom just quickly gathering whatever we could from the shops that were open, and coming back home, and then and that was pretty much it. The days that followed, I think all I remember is everything after that just goes really dark in my memory. Everything is just like a big cloud that just it's like a haze that just lowers on all of my memories since then. What I remember is, so we were at home, and the neighbors and some of the factory workers were bringing in the news that on the streets, just literally down the street from where we were, any recognizable Sikh on the streets was being beaten up by the mobs. They were being killed. They were taking the tires from their own vehicles and putting them around people and pouring gasoline on them, tying their hands and feet with their own pagdis and their chunnis, and men, women, and children. Yeah, so there's a few things that I remember. It was it was very painful to hear everything that was happening. It was shocking. It was unbelievable, and it just you just can't anticipate or even fathom that something like this could happen in your own home being in your own country, which which you love so much. And it just in an instant created the intense dislike for the place where I was. And so on the news, we had the TV on when the electricity was there. On the news, I remember Rajiv Gandhi coming on national TV and saying "Hum khoon ka badla khoon se lenge," and the whole time the TV was focused on Indira Gandhi's funeral and Amitabh Bachchan with Rajiv Gandhi supporting him the whole time. And so there was nothing on the news about what was going on, but whatever we know is what the news was coming in from people who were witnessing what was going on the street. And so I drew a picture of when I was looking out on the veranda. There was smoke that I could see out on the street where they were saying these things were happening. All I remember are plumes of smoke, and just feeling very helpless. I wasn't scared. I was naively not afraid. But I was very helpless. I wish I could do something. And my brother, who was in engineering college, we had a shotgun. So I saw him with a couple of his friends across from the YMCA engineering college, just kind of getting ready in the event that we were attacked. And so I faintly remember from the corner of my eye, remembering him putting everything together for self-defense and getting the shotgun ready. And then I think it was day 1 or day 2, I was looking out from the veranda, looking at, looking to see. Basically, I felt like I was on guard, that I needed to know if someone was heading that way, then we would have a plan of action. I had no idea what that would be, but I just needed to be on guard. So I was just looking out looking over the veranda, and two tractor trailers pulled in. They were huge, probably the 18 to 20 foot trucks that carry goods from one state to another. And then the drivers got out. There were 6 drivers who were who had entered through the gate at our front entrance, and they were seeking shelter. They were quite shaken up, and Mom went down to see what was going on, and they basically told us what they had witnessed, what was going on the streets. And then they had to change their route as soon as they saw what was going on. They had to turn into the closest street to protect themselves and find shelter. So we were really afraid that the mob was going to follow the trucks and come in that way. And we had about 200 or so trees in the backyard that my grandfather had planted, and it made for a really nice camouflage for the trucks. So the trucks went into the back. And we had the trucks there for a couple of days, and the driver stayed for food and shelter at our place for a couple of days. And then when things seemed to be normalizing, safe enough for them to leave, they left. And then I remember we got the news about my history teacher. I think it must have been it was fifth grade. And when they got to her door, they were trapped in the house. So she had to jump from her balcony. And in the process, she broke her legs. And I think at that time, the mob was scattering, and the neighbors came in to say, "Biatekoiniga the sijao." And so part of their house, they were going to burn down the house, and the neighbors tried to protect them. And then we went to visit her a few days later, and I remember seeing her in full-length casts and laying on the bed, and she was telling us of her experience of being, how she was forced to jump from her balcony with her husband and her children. And so this whole time we were in Faridabad, and Dad was in Gurgaon for a business trip, and we had no idea where he was. We didn't know if he was still living or not, and we weren't talking about it, we weren't thinking about it. I think at that time everyone's adrenaline rush was just so strong. It wasn't fight or flight mode, it was self-preservation mode. That how do we survive this? How do we get through this? And at night we would turn the lights down, have only the candle on so no one would know that we lived there, so the mob wouldn't turn in. And then about a week went by, and as usual I was standing guard because that was like the thing that was something that I could do. I felt so helpless. I wanted to do something. A car pulled in. I told my mom that there's a car full of men that I've stopped at our front gate, and they're all Monet. Mom came out, and the 5 guys, just very flat affect, got out of the car. They walked in, Mom approached them, and they all came inside the house, sat down in the living room and started talking. And it wasn't until everyone except one man stayed, and I didn't realize that was my dad, because he was completely clean shaven, and the whole time that he was in Gurgaon, in order to be able to escape the mobs, he had cut his hair and gone clean shaven, and they basically hid from home to home, stop to stop, and they came home. And I remember for days I didn't believe that was my dad. I don't think any of our lives have been the same, and the pain never goes away of just feeling my dad's pain and everyone else who suffered, even though it's not my direct injury. It's really sad. It's disturbingly sad that something like this can happen in the world's biggest democracy. Yeah, we continued to live, and I remember that's when the conversations about leaving the country had started, and it was affecting business, it was affecting the family, it was affecting all of our safety. It was something that we couldn't stop thinking about. And at school, I was being taunted. There was one sick boy in my school. It was a Catholic school, and there was one sick boy. I remember he cut his hair at that time as well, and I just felt very, very alone. And that's when Mom and Dad decided that it was time for us to leave for the sake of our future and our education. That there was really nothing left for us there anymore. You know, when we moved to the States, and we read The Diary of Anne Frank, and I really felt at that time that was a character, that she was a person that I could relate to. And the story was so close to heart. And I wish I could capture the details of what people experienced during that time, and the mass butchering that occurred during that time, and I think in a place where people are treated like animals without any regard for humanity is no place for me. And that's a sentiment that I left the country with and never really looked back. Only because I just carried so much pain and so much anger with me that I never wanted to look back and go again. So I think I went back to India after 22 years. And that was the first time I felt fear. I was fearful because those were my last memories of leaving such a violent place. And now going back after 22 or 23 years, I felt like that I was going to be back where it all started. And that's exactly what happened. As soon as the plane landed, my heart just started to race. I was just holding onto my chair. I started to sweat because I didn't want to be there. And as soon as we got out of the plane, the sweat, the smog, the dust that I remembered from 23 years ago, it just hit me like a whiff. And it just it took me back in time instantly. And I was there for about a week. And the whole time I just said to my husband, I want to go home. This is no longer home for me. I have nothing left here to cherish or I want. And while everybody else wanted to shop and do other things, I had absolutely no interest in putting a single cent or a penny back into the place where we lost it all. Yeah.
Thank you, Gurpreet.